All right, let's welcome in our guy Tom Murphy into the program this morning as he joins us. Tom, we'll talk some Arkansas baseball coming up. We'll talk about the SEC redistribution, but a lot of our conversation was centered around the Texas game being prime time yesterday, which is a big deal. Also came out, FanDuel Sportsbook has already labeled and kind of calculated this game. Texas is a 4-point favorite, Tom, as it stands this morning. When you hear that line, what do you think? Tommy thought it was a little low. I kind of think it's a little low too. What, in Tom Murphy's perspective, is it's just when you hear that line?
Morning, everybody. When you say a little low, you mean you think Texas should be favored by a little more?
That's what we were thinking.
I was surprised a team that's going to start the year in the top 25, and maybe not rightfully so, was either they think a lot more of Arkansas than I think a lot of people do, or they really don't think that much of Texas in Vegas.
Oh, no, I think if you consider the 3-point home advantage, and then basically that's a touchdown difference by the book. And I think it's pretty accurate, honestly. You know, Arkansas, you got to get the quarterback situation resolved. I mean, and I don't mean resolved in who's going to start. They've got to get it to where, are they going to be productive? Can they have a balanced attack? You know, is KJ going to have enough weapons to throw the ball to and have enough time to pass and all that kind of stuff? But I think there's a strong assumption that Sarkisian is going to have these guys ready to roll by week 2, and we don't necessarily know that. He's a very good coach, and what an innovative play caller. I just think the play calling he had for Bama in the playoffs, in the semifinal championship, were just some of the, when you've got a talent like Devontae Smith, they maximize how he got open and exploited coverage and beat man coverage and just outflanked the defense, which is really what it gets down to. The nitty gritty of beating somebody is you outflank them. You know, you out scheme them, and he did a great job. So, does he have the talent at Texas to do that? Likely. Are they going to be ready to roll by week 2 like that? Not sure. But I think Sam Pittman and the Razorbacks are going to be, you know, revved up, and they're not going to be easy to beat. The one thing about them from last year, they didn't go about beating themselves a lot like the previous couple of years teams did. They didn't make a ton of mistakes, and so I think it's going to be a fantastic game, and it's worthy of the primetime spot.
Let's go to the baseball diamond. Dave shared with us yesterday that Caleb Bolden's going to get the Game 2 start against the Florida Gators. It looks like Payne Paulette and Alea Lockhart will come in for relief or for Game 3. Tom, for a lot of these young men, they've never experienced a full capacity Baum-Walker crowd. You think about, go back to last year, didn't get to SEC play early there, and then this year you've had the maximum to was it 66%? Tommy, was it that?
Well, they've adjusted the capacity twice, but it's been closer to 3/4 the last 2 weeks till this weekend.
So, Tom, for a lot of these young men this weekend, this is the first time they'll get to experience how raucous, how crazy this crowd's going to be. How much of an impact is that going to have on them, especially with the opportunity in front of them to win the whole sneaking SEC regular season?
Yeah, it's like DVH said yesterday. You know, when you do what they've done and they've gotten themselves in a position like they have, you want to have a home field advantage. Mm-hmm. And that's speaking more toward the regionals. But Baum-Walker is one of the best atmospheres in all the country, if not the best. And they get really loud. They know the game, so they know the right moments and all that kind of stuff. And they got a guy in the booth, John Williams, who is credited for that 7th inning stretch. And I can't remember. I think it was Murray State game early in the year of firing people up during the taking me out to the ball game and coming back into the game, and the Razorbacks rallied and won that game. So there's certainly more of a sense of normalcy heading into this weekend. People who've been vaccinated aren't required to wear masks. How do you determine that? I don't know. But, look, it's just going to be a wild place and a real good showdown because, as Dave pointed out yesterday, Florida at the beginning of the season was ranked number 1, and everyone felt like they had the best talent in the country. And now they're starting to play like it. And this is going to be a monumental series. And think of all the things on the table for the Razorbacks. Could win all 10 SEC series on the year. Every series they played on the weekend, they could win it if they win this one. And obviously the SEC regular season championship, which is not easy to come by.
Maybe the most surprising thing that might occur this week would be actually to play tonight, Tom. I'm looking at the forecast, 50 to 70% chances of rain all afternoon into the evening hours. There doesn't appear, at least from the app on my phone, to be a window to play baseball. I see, Tom, the way to really make this a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series, maybe a Friday, Saturday, or they could actually play that third game on Sunday if needed if tomorrow got washed out. So I'm looking for no baseball today. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was just in there watching, and there's some little windows, and I think in the evening it's not supposed to be as heavy, so I'm sure they're going to keep the minute-by-minute watch on that and try to slot it in there the best they can. The thing is, they are SEC Network, so I don't know how much flexibility they'll have because they're on the main deal, but, you'd love to see a series of this magnitude just played right on time, perfect weather, but, hey, look, they've battled through that all season long. They played 4 consecutive weekends with doubleheaders, and they swept one of those and split the other 3. They've navigated through all kind of things. Like, it's funny when I asked Dave this question yesterday about, you're switching your Game 2 starter in the final series of the regular season. What does that say that you're in this position? And he's like, I guess the question you're asking me is, we don't have 3 lockdown starters, and we've done what we've done, and that's the truth. It's just amazing. And even last weekend when Patrick Wicklander wasn't at his best, they still won that game, and Bolden did a great job. And I think they feel like maybe that Paulette works better out of the bullpen, and he certainly showed that in a couple of weeks that he was out of the rotation. So we've talked about this before. It's just phenomenal the way the amount of pitchers they have and the way they can plug them in. Like Vermillion, what's his role going to be as they enter the postseason? And Lockhart, he started very well last Sunday. Does he stay there in Game 3? And then how do you use everyone else around him? So I don't know. I hope they get the game in tonight, but it definitely is not a slam dunk that they will.
All right, so let's explore that thought just a bit more. Is the narrative more that Arkansas's pitching maybe doesn't have that lockdown starter, that Blaine Knight guy, that Isaiah Campbell guy, but it's better than you think. You're just going against really good SEC lineups, or is it the fact, Tom, that your pitching's not quite to the level you'd like it to be? It's not the strength of your team, but you look at the hitting and the power Arkansas has up and down its lineup and what has been very solid fielding for the most part. There's been a few hiccups lately, but still a very good fielding percentage. Is it about those two things that can make up for and cover up a little bit of the deficit with the pitching?
Yeah, I think the pitching is a little bit better than what it looks like based on the starting. Mm-hmm. Then they do make up for it with the home runs, the amount of walks they take. They weren't a very good 2-out hitting team early in the year, but they've gotten a lot better at it. Their bullpen obviously could be the best in the country. And honestly, guys like Caden Monk and Ryan Costiou, look at they pitched very well, but look at the win totals for Costiou, Monk, and Cops. That's where all your wins are coming from, or a lot of them. So, in the postseason, the bullpen's going to be very valuable, but if you could start averaging 5 innings per start, that's not a ton to ask for. If you can get that out of Wicklander, Lockhart, and Bolden or some other combination, then that puts you all the more on the plus side based on what your bullpen has done.
Tom Murphy with us here on the Morning Rush. Tom, the SEC, the redistribution, those numbers came out yesterday. They're kind of taking money that they're going to make with the new ESPN contract in 2024 and giving it to schools early. $23 million is going to be distributed to different different SEC schools. If you're in Hunter Yurchek's position, Tom, what are you spending that money on based on just kind of, it looks like the $35 million deficit they're facing from last year?
Well, these athletic departments are nonprofit organizations, so they're supposed to be, at a balanced deal at the end of every year. And Hunter Yurchek on Monday in Harrison told the crowd that for the year they were basically $35 million down. So this covers, that's 2/3 basically of their deficit that's going to be covered by this. But, he had mentioned to me before he talked to the crowd that they felt like they'd gotten through it okay. I mean, they had he said they lost 500 years of experience or so with their early retirement program, which it was painful for a lot of folks who weren't ready to retire. But he praised Sam Pittman for stepping forward as the first person to say, hey, if it takes us taking a salary cut, then that's what we're going to do. And the entire department did that. I had that in a story that was in, I think, Wednesday's paper about the coach's text thread. And I think they're going to come through this okay. And hopefully, the way fans should feel about this department in this spring with so many number one teams, so many teams in championships. Men's golf moved on to the NCAAs here in a couple of weeks yesterday. Fans should feel pretty good about the state of the department and the fact that football, should be on the way up. I'm not saying that they're going to contend next year, but they're just a more sound team, and I think everyone recognizes that.
You mentioned these are nonprofit entities. The SEC is itself. Each athletic department is itself. That they're foundations, like the Razorback Foundation and the one that is the fundraising arm at each of the other schools, are not. You can't keep large sums of cash, tens of millions in reserves, and that's one of the things for all these athletic departments, Tom. They've found hard times because they have to lean other directions. I just wonder if they all take a different approach to the level of reserves they keep within their foundations because they're not allowed to keep them within their departments. I wonder as a league if maybe they tighten the belt for a few years to store away an extra $50 million or whatever the number is, because who knows when the next crisis like we've had is going to occur.
Yeah, that's a great point, Tommy. And obviously, as we know, the Razorback Foundation has had to endure a lot of financial impact on buyouts. The Chad Morris, the Jeff Long, the Brett one that they've just recently resolved, settling, and many other departments have had. Tennessee has had a load of those types of buyouts in recent years. So I think you're right. The thing for Arkansas is there's always generous donors based on where we're situated, where all these Fortune 500 companies are, that help keep things rolling along. And I do think that does bear a deeper examination of how schools' budgets are operated and how their fundraising arms are handled as well.
Tom, we appreciate your time as always, buddy. Florida, hopefully tonight, but it looks like the rain might push it back a little bit, so we'll kind of recap that, get ready for Hoover and all things next Monday. Sam's going to be joining us next Monday on location, so we might have to shift the times around a little bit.
Okay, that sounds good, and I'll be listening to that one. But yeah, everyone have a fantastic weekend. See you.
Good stuff from Tom, as always, here on the Morning Rush.